The night was calm. The camp was silent. Only the sound of the wind moved through the trees. Ethan, a soldier far from home, sat near the small fire he had made for warmth. He had walked for hours on the long patrol, and now he wanted to rest his tired body. The stars above him were bright, shining like silver dust across the sky. For a moment, everything felt peaceful. But peace never lasted long in a world like this. Suddenly, a loud noise shook the ground. It was like the roar of thunder mixed with the crack of metal. Ethan jumped to his feet. His heart pounded as he saw flames rise in the distance. Orange fire spread quickly, lighting up the dark sky. It was not just a fire, it was an explosion. He could hear screams, faint but desperate. Someone was trapped. Without thinking, Ethan grabbed his rifle and ran toward the burning wreckage. The fire grew hotter with every step. Smoke filled the air, stinging his eyes and making it hard to breathe. His boots crunched against broken glass and scattered metal. This was no normal accident. Something had crashed here. As he reached the flames, Ethan saw twisted steel and strange shapes he did not recognize. It looked like part of a ship, but not any ship he had ever seen. The metal glowed with strange colors, pulsing faintly like it was alive. Among the wreckage, he heard the cry again. This time it was closer, a voice, soft yet filled with fear. He pushed through the smoke, his hands burning from the heat. And then he saw her. A young woman lay pinned under a heavy piece of steel. The fire licked closer, threatening to swallow her whole. Her hair shimmered like silver in the firelight, and her eyes, even through the pain, glowed with an otherworldly light. Ethan froze for a moment, his mind unable to process what he was seeing. The girl struggled to breathe. She whispered something, words that sounded strange, not from Earth. Yet somehow, Ethan understood the feeling in her voice. It was a plea for help. Without wasting another second, he dropped his rifle and grabbed the steel beam. His muscles strained as he tried to lift it. The heat burned his skin, and smoke filled his lungs, but he refused to let go. "Come on, move," he growled under his breath. His strength was failing, but he pushed harder with one final effort. He lifted the metal just enough to pull her free. She gasped for air as he dragged her away from the flames. Ethan collapsed beside her, coughing hard. His chest burned, but when he looked at her face, he forgot the pain. She was not ordinary. Her skin seemed to glow faintly under the moonlight. Symbols like stars flickered across her arms and then disappeared. Her eyes, bright and strange, looked into his with both fear and gratitude. Ethan felt a chill down his spine. She was not human. The girl tried to stand, but her legs trembled. Ethan helped her up. His hand touched her arm, and for a moment he felt a rush of warmth like energy passing into him. He pulled his hand back quickly, staring in shock. The girl looked away as if ashamed. She whispered again, this time in perfect English, "You should not have saved me." Ethan frowned, his breath still heavy from the smoke. "Why not? You were dying in there," he replied, but she shook her head, her silver hair shining like firelight. "Because now they will come for you too." Before Ethan could ask what she meant, the ground shook again. From the burning wreckage, a strange sound echoed, a low hum that made his skin crawl. Ethan looked up and saw lights moving in the sky above. Not stars, not aircraft, but something alien. The girl's eyes widened in terror. She grabbed his arm tightly. "We have to run," she whispered. Ethan did not understand what was happening. He had only wanted to save a life. But now he realized he had stepped into something far larger than himself. The fire behind them grew higher. The night that began with calm silence had turned into chaos. Ethan knew only one thing for certain. Whoever this girl was, she was no ordinary stranger. The wind carried the smell of burning metal. The shadows of the trees stretched long and dark. Ethan tightened his grip on his rifle. He had faced danger before, but this was different. This was unknown, and the unknown was always the most dangerous. As they moved quickly into the darkness, Ethan felt her presence beside him, fragile yet powerful. He did not know her name. He did not know where she had come from, but he knew the truth deep inside. Saving her was not an accident. It was fate. Ethan and the girl moved deeper into the forest. The flames behind them roared like a beast, lighting the night sky red. Smoke rose high above the trees, a signal that could be seen for miles. Ethan's lungs still burned from the fire, but he kept pushing forward. His instincts told him danger was close. The girl stumbled, her legs weak. Ethan caught her before she could fall. He felt how fragile she was, yet there was something strange. Her body radiated warmth like a hidden energy. Her wounds, which should have been deep and bloody, were already closing, skin knitting together, as if time itself obeyed her. Ethan's eyes widened. He had seen men die from burns far smaller, but she looked like she was healing in front of him. She pulled away from him, her glowing eyes dimming. "You should not have saved me," she whispered again. Ethan frowned, his voice steady. "I couldn't just leave you there." The girl's expression darkened. She seemed torn between gratitude and fear. Her lips moved, speaking words that made no sense, strange sounds that echoed with power. It was a language unlike any Ethan had ever heard. For a moment, the air shimmered. Faint lights like stars appeared on her skin, glowing symbols that pulsed across her arms. Then, just as quickly, they vanished, leaving only smooth skin. Ethan blinked, trying to understand. His soldier's mind told him it was impossible, but his gut told him the truth. She was not human. "Who are you?" Ethan asked firmly. The girl hesitated, her silver hair falling across her face. She did not answer right away. Instead, she looked toward the burning wreckage behind them. Her eyes reflected the fire, and her voice shook when she finally spoke. "My name is Lyra," she said, "and I am not from your world." Ethan froze. The words felt heavy. He had always believed in what science told him, in what he could see and touch, but now he was standing face to face with something beyond imagination, a living, breathing alien who looked almost human. He swallowed hard. "Not from my world," he repeated. Lyra nodded slowly. "I am, or was a princess," she said with hesitation. "I was betrayed by those who should have protected me. They tried to burn me alive, and if you had not pulled me out, I would have been lost." Her voice carried both sorrow and strength. Ethan could feel the weight of her words, but one thing confused him more than anything. Why would someone betray a princess, he asked. Lyra looked down, her fingers tightening around a strange pendant at her neck. The crystal glowed faintly. "Because power makes monsters," she whispered. "My family ruled with light, but there are those who crave darkness. They want me dead because I carry the flame of the crown. If I live, their war cannot be complete." Ethan's chest tightened. He had fought in human wars. He knew what betrayal looked like. But this was bigger than politics or land. This was survival between worlds. Still, one thing made no sense to him. "Why do you say they will come for me?" he asked. Lyra's glowing eyes met his, filled with sadness. "Because you touched me," she said. "You pulled me from the fire, and in doing so, the bond was made. Now you are tied to me, and those who hunt me will see you as my protector. They will not allow you to live." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. He had only wanted to save her life, but now he was trapped in something he did not understand. Suddenly, a sound broke the silence, a low hum that grew louder with every second. Ethan turned sharply, scanning the trees. Above them, strange lights moved in the night sky. Not like planes, not like helicopters. They shifted like predators circling prey. Lyra's grip on his arm tightened. "They are here," she whispered. Ethan raised his rifle. Though he knew it was useless against whatever these things were, his heart raced. His training told him to fight. But another part of him told him to run. Lyra's energy pulsed again, faint symbols flickering across her skin. Her eyes glowed brighter. "If we stay, they will take me," she said firmly, "and they will kill you." Without another word, she pulled Ethan deeper into the forest. Her steps were unsteady, but her determination was clear. Ethan followed, the sound of the strange ships echoing above them. His mind raced with questions, but only one thing mattered: staying alive. As they ran, Ethan glanced at her again. The silver-haired stranger he had pulled from the flames was no longer just a mystery. She was a princess from another world, a hunted fugitive, and somehow she was now tied to him. The weight of her secret pressed on him like armor, heavy but unbreakable. He had saved her once, but now he wondered, could he save her again? The forest grew darker. the hum in the sky louder. Somewhere in the shadows, their hunters waited, and Ethan knew one thing. This was only the beginning. The night air was heavy, filled with smoke and the distant glow of fire. Ethan moved quickly through the forest with Lyra at his side. Every sound in the darkness felt sharper. Every shadow looked alive. Above them the strange lights circled, silent but threatening. Ethan's instincts told him they were being tracked, hunted like animals. Lyra's breathing was uneven. Though her wounds were gone, her strength was not fully back. Ethan supported her as they ran. His mind replayed her words. Princess betrayed, hunted, bond. The weight of her truth pressed on him like stone, but there was no time to question more. The sound of branches snapping behind them made his heart pound harder. They were no longer alone. Out of the trees, figures emerged, tall and armored. Their bodies shimmered with dark metal that bent the light around them. Eyes like burning coals glared through their helmets. Their weapons crackled with energy, humming with deadly power. Ethan froze for only a moment, then raised his rifle. His human weapon looked small compared to theirs, but he refused to lower it. One of the figures stepped forward. His voice was deep, metallic, echoing in the forest like thunder. "Return the princess, human," he commanded. "She belongs to us." Lyra's grip tightened on Ethan's arm. Her glowing eyes showed both fear and defiance. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "They are not my protectors. They are my executioners." The lead hunter tilted his head, almost amused, his gaze fixed on Ethan. "You do not understand, human," he said. "She carries the flame of the crown. If she lives, the war will never end. Hand her over, and we will grant you a swift death." Ethan's jaw tightened, his heart pounded, but his voice was steady. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me," he said. His words echoed with courage he did not know he had. The hunters laughed, a hollow sound that made the forest tremble. One raised his weapon, light building at the tip. Before the shot could fire, Lyra stepped forward. Her silver hair glowed faintly, and strange symbols flickered across her skin again. "Enough," she said with power in her voice. The hunters paused, their laughter fading. Their leader lowered his weapon slightly. "So the princess still remembers her crown," he said. "But you are weak, Lyra, and your human cannot protect you." Ethan's finger hovered over the trigger of his rifle. His soldier's training screamed at him to fire, but his gut told him human bullets were useless. Still, he refused to back down. He took a step closer to Lyra, placing himself between her and the hunters. "She's not alone anymore," he said firmly. The leader's eyes glowed brighter. "Then you will die beside her," he growled. With a motion of his hand, two hunters rushed forward. Ethan fired. The rifle cracked loudly, echoing in the forest. One bullet struck the armor, sparking but not piercing. The alien barely staggered. Ethan cursed under his breath, his weapon nothing more than noise against such power. The hunters swung their weapons, energy slicing through the trees like lightning. Ethan barely pulled Lyra down before the blast burned past them. Trees exploded into fire. Dirt rained across the ground. Ethan coughed but held her tightly. His eyes searched for any escape. Lyra placed her hand on the earth, whispering words in her alien tongue. The ground trembled. A faint shield of light rose around them, deflecting the next blast. The hunters growled. "So you still carry the flame," their leader said. His voice carried anger, but also something else. Fear. Lyra's eyes glowed brighter. "You will not take me," she said, "and you will not harm him." Her voice carried a strange force. Ethan felt the air around him vibrate. The hunter stepped back for a moment, studying her. Then the leader raised his hand. "So be it," he said. "Run if you wish, princess. It will not matter. We will hunt you across this world, and the human will die screaming when you fall." His words cut like knives, but Ethan stood tall. "Try me." Ethan spat. He grabbed Lyra's hand and pulled her back into the forest. The hunters did not chase right away. Their leader simply watched, his burning eyes following them into the shadows. His voice echoed in the night. "Run, princess, run, and see how far you get." As they vanished into the trees, Ethan's chest heaved with exhaustion. His rifle was nearly empty, and his strength was fading. Lyra leaned on him, Her face pale, but her eyes still burning, she whispered, "You should not fight them. They're stronger than you can imagine." Ethan looked at her, his voice steady. "Then we'll just have to outsmart them." The night grew darker. The forest seemed endless behind them. The hunters' shadows moved like predators. Ethan knew the battle was only delayed, not ended. The truth was clear. The hunters had arrived, and they would not stop until the princess was theirs, or until Ethan was dead. And so the chase began. The forest stretched endlessly, its shadows deep and silent. Ethan guided Lyra through the winding paths, his rifle heavy in his hands. Every sound behind them felt like a warning. Every gust of wind whispered a pursuit. The hunters had not attacked again, but he knew they were close, circling, waiting for the moment to strike. Lyra's steps were weak, but her eyes burned with determination. Her silver hair caught the faint moonlight, glowing like threads of fire. Ethan could see she was carrying more than just fear. She carried a secret, something that weighed on her like a crown she could not remove. He wanted answers, but he held his questions. Survival came first. At last they stopped by a stream, water flowing quietly under the night sky. Lyra sat on a stone, her hands trembling as she touched the crystal pendant at her neck. It glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Ethan crouched beside her, his voice low. "You need to tell me what this really is," he said. "What are we running toward, Lyra?" She looked at him, her glowing eyes reflecting both pain and hope. "There is a place," she whispered, "an ancient gateway hidden on your world, a portal built by my people long ago. It is the only way to escape the hunters, the only way I can return to what is left of my kingdom." Ethan frowned. The words felt unreal, but after everything he had seen, he could not deny them. "Where is it?" he asked firmly. Lyra closed her eyes as if searching within. "Far from here," she said, "beyond the mountains, hidden in ruins older than your cities. But it will not open without the flame of the crown, and I am not strong enough yet." Her voice trembled. Ethan could see she was close to breaking. "You'll make it," he said quickly, his voice steady. "We'll get there together." Lyra looked at him, almost surprised. "Why do you protect me?" she asked softly. Ethan did not answer at once. He thought of the burning wreckage, of pulling her from the flames. He thought of the hunters calling her a princess and demanding her life. Finally, he said, "Because I couldn't live with myself if I walked away." For a moment, her glowing eyes softened. A warmth passed between them. Then she turned her gaze back to the pendant, whispering words in her alien tongue. The crystal pulsed brighter, and for a heartbeat, Ethan saw something impossible. The stream around them shimmered. The air bent like glass. He felt as if he were standing on the edge of another world. Then it was gone. The light faded, leaving only the cold night. Lyra sighed, exhaustion pulling at her. "I cannot hold it long," she said. "The hunters are draining my strength. They feed on the same energy that I carry. If they catch me before the gate, everything will be lost." Ethan tightened his grip on his rifle. His jaw clenched. "Then we don't let them catch us," he said. His voice carried iron. Lyra studied him, and for the first time a small, fragile smile touched her lips. "You are strange for a human soldier," she whispered. "Strange but brave." The forest rustled, a sound too heavy for wind. Ethan's body tensed instantly. He motioned for silence. His eyes scanned the shadows. And then he saw them, shapes moving between the trees, their armor glinting faintly. The hunters had found them. "Move!" Ethan whispered sharply. He pulled Lyra to her feet. Together they ran, branches slapping against their faces, the ground uneven beneath their boots. Behind them the hunters closed in, their voices echoing like metal. "You cannot run, princess," one of them called. "The gate will not save you." Lyra's pendant flared, the crystal glowing brighter with each step. It guided her, pulling her forward like a compass. Ethan followed without hesitation. His lungs burned, his legs screamed, but he did not slow. He could feel the hunters closing the distance. A blast of energy tore through the forest. Trees exploded into fire. The ground shook as burning wood fell around them. Ethan shielded Lyra, his body taking the shock of falling debris. He groaned but forced himself up. He refused to stop. Another blast streaked past, carving a crater into the earth. Lyra raised her hands, whispering faster. Her skin glowed with shifting symbols. A barrier of light shimmered between them and the hunters. The blast struck the shield, rippling it like water. Ethan pulled her away before it shattered. They had seconds, no more. Finally, through the smoke and destruction, the trees opened into a wide clearing. At the center stood ruins, ancient stone carved with strange markings. Pillars half-broken reached toward the sky, and at the center, a circular arch stood, cracked but still pulsing faintly with energy. Ethan's breath caught. He knew at once. This was the gateway. Lyra's eyes filled with both fear and relief. "We are close," she whispered. The pendant glowed brighter. Responding to the arch, the hunters emerged from the forest edge, their weapons raised. The ruins trembled under the weight of silence. The broken arch of the ancient gate pulsed faintly, as if it remembered the worlds it once connected. Ethan and Lyra stood at its base, the moonlight spilling across the stones like silver fire. Behind them, the forest burned with the light of the hunters' weapons, their shadows stretched long, their eyes burning red through the smoke. Ethan tightened his grip on the rifle, sweat dripping down his face. He knew the weapon was nearly useless against them, but still he would not let go. He positioned himself slightly ahead of Lyra, his body instinctively shielding her. Lyra's pendant glowed stronger now, answering the call of the ruined gate, but she was trembling, her strength fading with every heartbeat. The hunters stepped forward, their leader towering above the others. His armor shifted like liquid metal, his weapon humming with deadly energy. His voice rolled through the clearing like thunder. "You cannot win. Princess, your flame is weak. Your bond with the human is fragile. Surrender, and your death will be quick." Lyra raised her chin, her glowing eyes locked on the hunter. "I will not bow to traitors," she said. Her voice cracked with exhaustion, but burned with defiance. The hunters laughed, a sound hollow and cruel. Their leader raised his hand, and the ground split as a surge of energy ripped through the ruins. Stone shattered. Dust rose like a storm. Ethan pulled Lyra down, shielding her as shards of stone rained around them. His ears rang, his chest ached, but he forced himself up. "Run to the gate," he hissed, but Lyra shook her head. Her fingers tightened on his arm. "If I leave you, they will kill you before the gate even opens," she whispered. Ethan looked at her, his jaw tight. "Then we stand together," he said. The hunters advanced, weapons glowing. Ethan fired. The bullets sparked against their armor, useless but loud. The sound filled the clearing, buying seconds of hesitation. Seconds were all they had. The hunters moved in closer, their weapons raised to strike. Lyra stepped forward, her pendant blazing. Symbols surged across her skin, brighter than ever before. The ground beneath her feet glowed, cracks of light spreading across the ruined stones. She raised her hand, and a wave of pure energy burst outward. The hunters staggered, their armor sparking, their leader growling in rage. Ethan stared in shock, his chest tightened as the force washed over him. He could feel her power, like standing in the heart of a storm. But as the light faded, Lyra staggered, blood at the corner of her mouth. Her body shook violently. "You're killing yourself," Ethan whispered, catching her before she fell. Lyra's eyes flickered. "If I do nothing, we both die," she whispered back. The hunters regrouped, their leader roaring. His voice carried fury. "So the flame still burns," he growled. "But it will not last. Your crown dies tonight." He raised his weapon, a massive surge of energy building at its core. Ethan's heart pounded. He pulled Lyra closer, bracing for the end. The blast came like a falling star. A beam of light tore through the air. Ethan dove aside with Lyra in his arms. The beam struck the ruined arch, exploding stone into shards. For a moment, Ethan thought the gate was destroyed, but instead the ancient structure pulsed brighter, cracks glowing with energy, as if awakened by the attack. Lyra's eyes widened. "The gate responds," she whispered. "Their wrath awakens it." Her pendant shone like a sun, connecting her to the arch. The hunters snarled, realizing their mistake. Their leader bellowed, "Stop her before it opens." They charged, their armored feet shaking the earth. Ethan fired again. Emptying his rifle, sparks lit the night, but the hunters pushed through. He threw the useless weapon aside, drawing his combat knife. His hand shook, but his eyes were steady. He had faced war before, but never like this. The first hunter swung. Ethan rolled under the strike, the blade of his knife slicing between the armor plates. The alien roared, staggering but not falling. Ethan's breath came fast. He had wounded it, but barely. He knew he could not hold them off alone. Lyra's voice rose behind him, chanting in her alien tongue. Her hands glowed, symbols wrapping around her body like armor of light. The air pulsed, the ruins shook. The gate flickered, sparks of blue fire swirling within its frame. Ethan risked a glance back. He saw her standing tall despite her pain. Every ounce of her will poured into the awakening portal. The hunters sensed it too. Their leader roared with fury, his eyes burning like twin suns. "No, you will not escape." He thundered. He leapt forward, his weapon raised. Ethan moved to block him, but the power was too great. Lyra stepped between them, her hands blazing with light. The hunter's weapon struck, but the energy shattered against her shield. The blast rippled through the clearing, knocking Ethan back, his vision blurred, his body aching. He heard Lyra's voice, soft yet filled with fire. "You will not take me, and you will not take him." The hunters recoiled, their armor cracking under the force. The leader snarled, his voice heavy with hatred. "This is not the end, Princess. The flame will burn out, and when it does, the human will fall first." With that, he signaled his warriors. They retreated into the shadows, their forms vanishing into the smoke. Silence fell over the ruins. Ethan pushed himself up, his chest heaving. He looked at Lyra, her body trembling, her skin pale, but her eyes still glowing. The gate behind her pulsed with living fire, half awake, waiting for the final spark. Ethan staggered to her side, catching her as she swayed. "You saved us," he whispered. Lyra shook her head weakly. "Not yet," she said, her voice faint but steady. "The wrath of our enemy is only beginning. They will return stronger, and when they do, we must be ready." Ethan looked at the glowing arch, then back at her. His voice was quiet but resolute. "Then we'll be ready," he said. The ruins glowed brighter, and the night carried the promise of a greater storm to come. The ruins glowed faintly under the broken moon. The arch of the gate pulsed like a sleeping heart, waiting to be awakened. Ethan stood beside Lyra, his hand still steady on her arm. She looked pale, exhausted, but her glowing eyes still burned with a hidden fire. The forest around them was silent now, but Ethan knew the hunters were not gone. They were watching, waiting for their chance. Lyra leaned against the ruined stone, her breath uneven, her pendant glimmered weakly, no longer shining with its earlier strength. Ethan studied her face. He had fought to protect her. He had seen her unleash powers that defied belief. But now she looked fragile, almost human. He knelt beside her, his voice low but firm. "Tell me what happens next, Lyra. The gate is alive, but it isn't open yet. What do we do?" Lyra closed her eyes, her voice soft. "The gate responds to the flame of the crown," she whispered, "but the flame is dying inside me. I do not have the strength to open it fully. The hunters know this. That is why they wait. They know time will finish what their blades could not." Ethan clenched his jaw, anger rising inside him. He had seen hopeless battles before, but this felt heavier. He touched her shoulder gently. "Then we find another way," he said. Lyra looked at him, her glowing eyes shimmering with pain. "Another way means sacrifice," she whispered. "The gate will not open unless life is offered to it. If I give myself, it will awaken, and you will live. But if I live, the gate remains closed, and the hunters will come again." Ethan's chest tightened. The words struck him like a blade. "No," he said quickly. "That's not a choice. You don't throw your life away." Lyra smiled faintly, a sadness hidden in her expression. "You don't understand, Ethan. My life has never been mine. I was born as a crown, not as a person. Every breath I take is a duty. If dying means saving another, then it is the only path left to me." Ethan shook his head, his voice rough. "I didn't drag you out of that fire just to watch you walk into another. I saved you because your life matters, Not because it's some duty written in stone. Lyra stared at him, silent. Her lips parted, but no words came. For the first time, she looked uncertain, as if his words had struck something she had buried deep. The ruins trembled suddenly. A low hum filled the air. The gate flickered with light, responding to her pendant even in its weakened state. Ethan looked at it, then back at her. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "If we run, we fight again. If we stay, we fight again. Either way, we fight. But if you die here, Lyra, there's no fight left. There's no hope left. You are the gate. You are the flame. And you are not alone anymore." Her eyes softened, shimmering with something Ethan had never seen in her before. "Trust." She placed her hand on his, their fingers trembling but locked together. "You speak like one of my own people," she whispered. "But you are human, fragile and short-lived. Why would you carry a burden that is not yours?" Ethan's voice was quiet but unshakable. "Because I chose to. Because the moment I pulled you from those flames, your fight became mine. That's what humans do. Lyra, we protect, even when the world tells us we can't." The air around them shifted. The gate pulsed brighter. The pendant on her chest glowed again, stronger this time. It responded not to her alone, but to both of them. The bond forged in fire now burned in light. Lyra's eyes widened, realization dawning. "The gate listens to choice," she whispered. "Not only sacrifice. It listens to will, to unity. That is why it awakened when you touched me, Ethan. It was never meant for me alone." Ethan tightened his grip on her hand. The ruins shook harder, cracks glowing like rivers of fire. The gate roared to life, blue lights swirling inside its broken frame. The portal between worlds was opening. Lyra gasped as the energy surged through her body, filling her with both pain and strength. Ethan steadied her, refusing to let go. The hunters appeared at the edge of the ruins, their glowing eyes burning with fury. Their leader roared, "No, this cannot be. The gate belongs to us. The flame belongs to darkness." They rushed forward, weapons crackling with energy. Ethan stepped in front of Lyra, his stance firm. His body screamed with exhaustion, but his voice was strong. "You're not taking her." Lyra raised her glowing hands, energy bursting from her fingertips. The light fused with Ethan's will, the bond between them radiating like a storm. Together they unleashed a wave that pushed the hunters back. Armor cracked, weapons shattered, and for the first time, fear glimmered in the eyes of their enemy. The gate flared brighter, pulling at Lyra with its force. She looked at Ethan, her voice shaking. "If I step through, the hunters cannot follow. But if I stay, I put your world at risk. Tell me, Ethan, what is your choice?" Ethan stared at her, his heart pounding. His mind screamed to hold her here, to never let her go. But he also knew her truth. She was a princess, a flame, a hope for a kingdom beyond his stars. His jaw clenched. "I'll stand where I must, Lyra, but the choice is yours." Her glowing eyes shimmered with tears. She touched his face gently. "Then I choose both," she whispered. She turned toward the gate, her body glowing with the energy of the crown. The hunters roared, charging one final time. Ethan raised his blade, ready to fight. Lyra's voice rose above the chaos. "By flame and bond, I choose life, not death." The gate answered, exploding in light, swallowing the ruins, swallowing the hunters, swallowing everything but the bond between her and the human who refused to let her fall. The ruins shook as the gate erupted in light. The storm of energy tore through the clearing, scattering stone and fire like dust. Ethan shielded his eyes, but he refused to step back. Beside him, Lyra glowed with the fire of her crown, her body surrounded by shifting symbols that pulsed like living stars. The hunters screamed as the light struck them, their armored forms cracking, breaking apart under the force of the bond. Yet their leader still stood. His armor burned and shattered, but his rage burned brighter. His voice thundered through the chaos. "You cannot destroy us, princess. You cannot hide behind this human. The flame belongs to us. And when you are gone, your world and his will both fall." Ethan stepped forward, his blade shaking in his grip. His chest ached. His breath came ragged, but his eyes locked on the towering figure. "You're wrong," he growled. "She doesn't stand behind me. she stands with me. Lyra raised her hands, her pendant blazing like a small sun. The gate roared in response, its energy pulling at everything around it. The hunters staggered, dragged toward the swirling light. Their leader dug his claws into the ground, fighting the pull. His eyes burned with fury. "I will not bow. I will not fall to a human's hand," he roared. Ethan glanced at Lyra, her face pale, her body trembling under the weight of the energy. He knew she could not hold it alone. He stepped closer, taking her hand. The moment their fingers touched, the gate's light flared brighter. Energy surged through Ethan's body, searing but alive. He felt her strength, her fear, her will, and he gave her his own in return. Together they turned to face the leader. Their voices rose as one. "This ends now." The ground split open beneath the hunter's feet. Blue fire wrapped around him like chains. He roared, lashing out. His weapon struck Ethan, sending pain ripping through his chest. But Ethan refused to fall. He gripped his knife tighter, charging forward with every ounce of strength he had left. The blade struck true, finding the crack in the alien's armor. The leader staggered, his eyes wide with shock. Lyra's voice rang out, filled with fury and sorrow. "By the flame of the crown, and by the bond of fire, I cast you into the void." Her hands blazed, the gate roared. The hunter screamed as the portal pulled him in, his body breaking apart into shadows. Then he was gone, swallowed by the light. Silence followed, broken only by the hum of the awakened gate. Ethan fell to one knee, his chest burning from the strike. Lyra rushed to him, her glowing hands trembling as she pressed them against his wound. "Stay with me," she whispered, her voice cracked, glowing tears rolling down her cheeks. Ethan forced a weak smile. "I'm not going anywhere," he said, his words rough but steady. The gate shimmered. Waiting, Lyra looked at it, then back at Ethan, her choice still weighed heavily on her. She could step through, return to her kingdom, leave Earth behind, or she could stay and risk drawing the hunters back to this world. The silence stretched like a blade between them. Ethan struggled to his feet, pain in every movement. He placed his hand on her shoulder. "Lyra," he said softly, "this is your choice, not mine. If you go, I'll understand. If you stay, then we fight together, no matter the cost." Her glowing eyes filled with conflict. For a moment, she saw the faces of her people, the kingdom waiting for her return. Then she saw Ethan, the human who had carried her from fire, who had refused to abandon her even when death surrounded them. Her heart burned with the truth. "I was born to be a crown," she whispered, "but tonight, I choose to be more." She looked at him, her voice strong despite her tears. "I choose to stay." The gate pulsed, its light dimming slowly, as if bowing to her decision. The ruins trembled once more before settling into silence. The hunters were gone. The storm had passed, for now. The world was safe. Ethan exhaled, relief and exhaustion washing over him. He looked at Lyra, still glowing faintly. Her silver hair drifted in the night breeze. Her presence felt like both a promise and a burden, but he knew one thing for certain. He would not let her face this future alone. Lyra stepped closer, her hand resting gently against his chest where the wound still ached. "You saved me from the flames," she said softly. "But more than that, you saved me from being only what they wanted me to be. You gave me the choice to live, not just to rule." Ethan's lips curved into a tired smile. "Guess that makes us even," he said. She shook her head, her glowing eyes shining brighter. "No, Ethan, we are not even. We are bound by fire and by fate." The night fell quiet, the stars shining above. Somewhere in the distance, the last embers of the battle still glowed, but in the ruins of the ancient gate, two figures stood side by side, a soldier and a princess, a human and an alien. Their bond had survived the wrath of enemies and the fire of destiny. And though the war was far from over, Ethan knew the truth. Together, they would face it. Together, they would burn brighter than any flame.